Alright, so for our second video, we've got our vehicle out of the booth on this Audi. And if you remember, we had some damage right here. So what I want to do, I don't see anything left. But what I want to do is, before I unmask this, I want to get this sanded so that I can be certain that that's all gone. So I'm going to sand this area first. And then once I know that we actually got this how we want it, then I'm going to then remove the masking paper, and then we can sand everything out a little bit more. So we've got 400 and 600, and I forgot my block. Let me go get that while I'm doing this. So we tried or at least I tried for the first time, that Tamco primer. It sprayed real nice, and it turned out real good here. So we're going to see how it sands. It's got a real nice look to it. So I like that. If you can get your primer to turn out reasonably slick, then it makes for a lot less work when you go to do this kind of stuff. Alright, so just got a bucket of water, got our 400, come in here, and we'll block just this area where we had the damage so that I can see for certain that we got it all gone. I don't feel anything, so I think we're good. But when you get into this real fine stuff, it's good to just make it nice and slick, and then you can see it. It wasn't substantial damage. It was really small to begin with. So this will help us to know how it's really going to look painted. Yeah, it's sanding pretty good. What you're looking to do is get rid of this. I don't know if you can see that in the camera. I'll try to get the camera to sort of see how it's you got the texture. You got to get rid of that texture for one thing. So I'm gonna take a piece of 600. Just gonna go over it quick with 600, and I'm actually gonna use a little bit of 1000 on it. We'll go back over. We don't want to leave it at 1000, but I want to use a little bit of 1000 on it just to kind of polish it up a little bit, so I can really look at it, make sure it's nice and straight. So I'll show you the best I can. I'm certain you guys will agree I am definitely ready for us to be able to be back in class in person. This goes a lot better in person, being able to see this and feel it with your own hand, and be able to see how these transitions need to go. But because of the whole corona thing, we can't. So we'll do the best we can with what we got. just kind of polish that up a little bit. I'm gonna dry that off. Okay, so that's light wave right there. Gotta keep going. So right here, we still got a little bit of a wave. Let's see if I can cut it more. That. Loading up my paper there. Go through a little bit. Not necessarily a problem yet. Which this is actually a good indication of, you know, we talked about in class about how when you get a dent, it causes disturbances in other areas, because the damage that we have was actually right in here. And you can see we got a little bit of an eye spot above it. So you can see even on a really small scale, that metal moves. Whenever you have a small spot, that's why hail damage is such a problem. You think, oh, it's a bunch of little tiny dents, so that should be easy to fix. But those little dents cause little distortions next to it too. So you kind of get that volcano look around it. And so you can't just go and easily fix them. There's a lot of work goes into it. That's why the paintless guy gets paid a good amount of money to fix. That's why it's expensive. You know, they need to be fixed correctly in order to not have issues. Still don't feel anything. Actually, maybe right there. Let me see. See if I can get that going. think I got it. 600. I'm just going to try to slick this up a little bit so we can really see it. All right. 1,000. Go over it again with that. Think we're good. I think we're all right there. Okay. All right, so now the next step is going to be we're going to remove the paper here. Start getting rid of and kind of blending it into the other piece. And now is where you're going to see why your masking and this on this kind of stuff is so important. It makes your life a lot easier if you mask correctly with this. So a couple things I want to show you here. So now in this we're doing an overall paint job, so it doesn't matter how far we go out. You know, you want to try to have your primer out and faded out, so that way you don't have to deal with a line. Like we're gonna have a little bit of a line we have to deal with here and here and right there. We also utilized this edge here, so then that should make that a lot easier. But you've got to get rid of these lines 100%. And then the other thing that happens is the primer, as far as it's sticking, it will and then also the height of it, you got to get it where it's on the same plane as everything else. If you don't, then you will see outline of where that primer is. You wouldn't think, for as thin as this is, that you would see that, but you absolutely will be able to. I don't know if you can see this or not. This is why it's so much better to be able to do this in person in class. But right here, I'm gonna try to get in nice and close for you. Right here, you can see how the primer is in these scratches, and it's very fuzzy looking and faded out. That's what you want the edge of everything to look like. But up here, you can see that it's a little bit, but not much. And if you look real close, let me try different angles, try to move this around a little bit. If you look real close, you will see that there is this kind of little shiny, or shinier looking, kind of darker line right along that edge. Let's see if I can get it with my nail. No, it doesn't. It's very fine. So this wouldn't show bad, but that little bit right there would actually show. If I were to paint this now and clear it, you'd be able to see a line right there. You wouldn't think it because it's so, I mean, you can see I'm just rubbing right over it, but you got to get rid of these areas. It needs to look like this, not like that. And I have no idea how it's going to look in the camera. Hopefully you can see that. But that's a very important part to doing a repair, is getting rid of this and having your edges look like that. And that's why doing your masking correctly is so important. So let me get my paper a little freshed up. So right now that's a negative on Tamco. I don't like that. Although it did sand nice, so it might be worth it. I don't know. I don't know why I did that. Oh well. Alright, so we're gonna start sanding these edges. I'm gonna stay mainly on top of the primer. See, again, we're trying to get this to be the same plane as this. Now, you know, I know it doesn't seem like, you know, it's on a very hard to measure, you know, in mil thickness, you know, level, but you want this to be on the same plane and faded out, you know, correctly. So you want to get, you got to sand more on top of your primer. So if you're doing this and coming across it, then you're just gonna basically, it's exaggerated, but you're gonna ride up onto it. And then the other thing that will happen is you'll wind up sanding too low here, because you're just ever so slightly, this will pick up and then dig out right back here. So you got to be real careful about how you go about sanding and really think about what you're doing. So you want to be on